Hi, Bart.
Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 107.7 and 105.3 out of the beautiful city of New Orleans, Louisiana. We are also can be found on Roku, on television, the cable television show, as well as YouTube, Facebook, and a lot of other platforms. And today, of course, I'm in Austin, Texas, and we are enjoying all the sunshine here. And we're also in Chicago, Illinois with Kay Gardner. Welcome, Kay.
Thank you, Bart. Nice to see you.
I just wanted to start the show with just reading a brief description of Kay. Kay Gardner has over 40 years of clinical experience and 30 years in private practice. She is a senior lead trainer for Internal Family Systems, IFS, and has been involved with IFS since 1991. Prior to her work with IFS, she was a therapist and a teacher for Hakomi body-centered psychotherapy. She has been a student of yoga and meditation for over 40 years. That's a lot of years to be meditating. She is a gifted and heartfelt presenter who brings a body-centered and spiritual approach to her work. Kay is also founder of the Women's Circle, a women's program in Chicago, and has led various successful workshops around the country for men and women, including Persephone's Journey, Men and Their Mothers, Women and Their Fathers, and as well, our topic today, but with workshops, Legacy Burdens. So welcome, Kay. I'm so glad you're on this show.
Oh, thanks, Bart. It's so nice to be here. I do want to say that I co-founded the Women's Circle. The Women's Circle was with a partner. So just want to give credit to Wendy.
Let's give credit where credit's due. And just so glad you're here. And today we're going to be talking about one of the things that you do, and that is legacy burdens.
Yeah.
That would be transforming family generational traumas. But a lot of people probably aren't familiar with the unique perspective or the unique tools that Internal Family Systems offers. This is a worldwide program, but is founded out of the United States. And maybe we should just start the interview with what is IFS, or Internal Family Systems?
Well, that's one of the deepest passions in my life. So I'm so happy to talk about it. Internal Family Systems is a model of psychotherapy really channeled into the world through Richard Schwartz here in Chicago. So Dick Schwartz was working as a family therapist, which is why it's called Internal Family Systems, at a place called the Institute of Juvenile Research. And Dick was working with people really externally in families, and then suddenly got very clear that there was also this internal family happening inside of people. So as he's looking at the connections between the family members, he's starting to notice that there's a connection between the different parts of the human, inside ourselves. And so Internal Family Systems is really working with all the different parts that live inside of us. And there's so many parts, right? Like there's really young parts of us. We call them our exiles, the really young, kind of vulnerable parts. And then the parts that feel they need to protect those parts. And then the parts that act out, right? We talk about exiles, managers, and firefighters as three of the different parts that live inside of us.
Exiles, managers, and firefighters.
Yes. And then a variety of different parts, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea behind it's a spiritual model, and also it's body-centered, because the idea behind that is that we have another place inside of us which is our highest, wisest self. And that's that place within us that really knows how to hold the rest of the system, like actually knows how to hold all of that and be with it and be in leadership with it.
Mm.
We call it internal family systems. And this idea about self leadership, that we are really, it's kind of like some people, and people in recovery and lots of people really think about turning their lives over to a higher power. And in IFS, we think of that higher power as also being connected to something inside of us. It lives inside of us. So it's kind of mystical in that way. Like there's
Yes,
God without,
it's,
but there's also God within.
it's very relevant for today, and that's so much of the process of, do you let these other, I guess, wounded roles that you have been taught to play and
Yes.
reenacted throughout your life, do you play those, or can you learn how to really operate out of a higher self within you?
So what the process that we do in that is different than just like trying to learn how to do it differently. It's deeper than that. So what we do in our work is go into those younger places inside of us. Like actually bring our higher selves to those places and help those parts to be able to let go of any burdens or beliefs that they have within them.
Mm.
And so it's a very deep inquiry. The work can almost look hypnotic, but it's actually not. We're taking people into their bodies to be able to open themselves up to the places that those, especially those really young exiles, are often hidden by, parts that want to look good, or, who want to like be in charge, right? They're covered over by all of those managers, right? And so we're finding a way to go in to be with those exiles so that they can start to unburden the pain that they carry by being fully witnessed and heard. And then our higher selves can help those young parts. It's almost like reparenting, but it's from the inside.
Yeah, and learning from more of the shamanistic work I do, I
Yes.
see those shadows or those roles that are kind of lost. We're not lost in us, but we're unconsciously reacting to them and playing them. Uh,
Yeah.
they're just stuck in that particular age and
Yeah.
trying to resolve it unconsciously by dragging us back into those negative stories.
Yeah, so we wouldn't phrase it that way, that they're negative stories. It's actually the way that we look at it is there's no positive or negative, right? There's no bad or wrong, or it's just what happened to
Yeah.
you. What happened in there? What was the pain that you carried? And what did you begin to believe because of that pain? These are just little kid parts of us that think, oh, I must be bad, or maybe there's something wrong with me. Right?
Yes.
And so we're going in to help those parts let go of those beliefs. And we do it. And like I was trained in South American shamanism, and a lot of us have a shamanistic, this work does have a shamanistic component, because what we do is we do this unburdening with people that really is like sending it into the air, the water, or fire, the earth, and bringing in new qualities, new energies. So it's a very complete process that way. It's beautiful.
It is, when we so many people, when they think of shamans, they think of people that are beating drums or wearing feathers or
Mhm.
something at this, and yet IFS has those components, but yet it is under the umbrella of a psychological model.
Yeah, it's very psychological, and yet it's very spiritual and energetic. So that's why, it's kind of brought all my loves together. And I was in on the ground floor of it. So help to kind of weave it and grow it. And, those of us who are Hakomi therapists kind of, we, we, we already knew how to bring trainings out into the world. And so when Dick was at IJR, we kind of nudged him like, hey, let's take this on the road. What do you think? We'll help you. We'll help you figure out exercises to do in the trainings. And so we began that in about 1993. We took it out on the road and started in Chicago. And then we started in Seattle and Asheville, North Carolina. And now there's 7,000 people on the waiting list, and we're all over the world, like every country practically. It's really just like blossomed.
Well, its time has certainly come.
Yes.
Because we really need more energetic healing.
Yes.
Wherever levels we are. When I was doing somatic experience with a therapist, I just knew that there was something that was missing.
Yes.
We were just feeling the traumas and being present with them.
Yes.
And then I would go home with all of this turmoil inside of me. And it was a slow process to resolve this stuff. Whereas when you bring in these other components, you speed up the process tremendously.
You really do speed up the process. I mean, that's why it's so popular, because it actually really works. It's not like you're sitting in the therapist's office just talking, and we're actually doing energetic techniques. We're taking people deep in. And most important is we're developing a relationship between our higher selves and these young parts of us, so that they always have a place to go. When they're in pain, they can come to us, right?
Yes.
That U-turn, that development becomes ongoing relationship, an ongoing healing relationship. And that's the most important aspect.
Yes. And one of the important aspects of the work that you do with IFS, or internal family systems. And by the way, if you wish to ask Kay a question, just please join on the chat and bring that question up, and we will do our best to respond. But I wanted to just bring this up here on United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on Roku. What the meat of our topic today is, which is legacy burdens.
Yes.
What a wild title, legacy burdens. When I hear that, I kind of know what it means and kind of go, what?
Okay, so I'll tell you a little story. It was about, I don't know, 25 years ago, probably. I was at one of the first IFS conferences, and there was a woman there who was talking about this concept of legacy burdens. She didn't know what to do with them. She didn't have any healing techniques for it, but she just talked about how we have them. And basically this idea that each of us carry burdens from our ancestors, right? From our parents, from our grandparents, from our great-grandparents, maybe even hundreds of years back, right? From our culture, actually. So, legacy burdens and cultural burdens, like we carry these, and we carry these in our bodies. We carry these in our DNA. We carry these in our fields, and we don't even know it, right? So when I heard this concept, I had always had this really intense abandonment thing. And I thought, it's so intense in me. And like, what is this? And my mother's mother died when she was 3 in a mental institution. And of course, she had terrible abandonment fears. And I was carrying them. And so when I heard this concept, I was like, oh, I see. Oh, this isn't even mine. But I didn't have a clue what to do with it either. So I went on a journey. Like, I need to learn how to work with this and what to do with it. and I studied with a South American shaman. I studied with energy workers. I studied everything I could get my hands on. I went to there's a physicist named Rupert Sheldrake that I tried to read him. Every book that I could get my hands on, I was trying to read about this. And what the concept that really stuck with me is this concept by Rupert Sheldrake called morphic fields. And morphic fields are these energetic fields that go through they go through ancestors, they go through lineages, they go through like all Native American people have a morphic field, all African American people have a morphic field, women have a morphic field. It's these energetic fields that run through groups of people.
So for example, um, I would have a morphogenetic field connected to my Comanche Indian heritage. It would be beyond just my great grandmother, but it would be the whole tribe of Comanches for generations and generations.
Yes, yes. Yes, so you would be connected to that. You would also have a connection to probably the white people that hurt them, right? You'd have all of that, right?
Oh,
You'd
yes.
have a morphic field to whatever religion you were brought up with. There's all these energetic fields. And so what I began to understand is that this has to be worked with energetically. There's no way to just go and sit in a therapist's office and talk about your ancestors and, have something shift. Like there needs to be an energetic piece of work that happens here.
So everybody has their own definition of energetic work.
Mhm.
What's it like doing a legacy burdens session with these energetic techniques?
Well, so what I did was just start to, I started slow with it. It's like, okay, well, I learned about cord cutting, right? That was the first thing I learned about.
So cord cutting is where you cut the cords between you and another person on an ethereal level. Is that correct?
Yes, yes. So that's what I started to do in the beginning. It's like just, I was struggling around with, okay, how can I work with this? And then as time kind of went on, I also want to give credit to two other of my colleagues who were developing this at the same time as I. Like the three of us were the most energetically sensitive people in the IFS community, Barbara Cargill and Mitchie Rose. And the three of us were studying energy medicine and doing everything we could. And sometimes we would talk and work together. And um, so started to understand that you could begin to call in the energies of these ancestors. Like you could bring them in the work, you could invite them in, and you could actually find, as we're working in IFS, the idea is to go into the body, find the pain, find the hurt, right? And
Mhm.
oftentimes what we do in a regular unburdening is we'll say, okay, so just see if you could track this back, this pain, this feeling of abandonment. Like, how far back does this go?
So are you asking, are you feeling the pain in the person's body, or are you
No.
teaching the other person, the client to feel the pain?
Yes, yes, yes. That's the difference between, us and shamans who like go and do that work and go into the
Right,
underworld.
right.
We're taking them in. We're
Yeah, I see this as a teachable moment. I'm a former teacher, so
Yes.
I ask these picky questions.
No, I really
The people on
appreciate.
the radio can take it and really have an idea
Yes.
how it works.
Yes, because like I remember going in, in my exploration of shamanism, going to someone who did Sandra Ingerman's work and did the rattle and took me they went underground and found my parts and brought them back up. But we do something really different. We take people into the underworld. We're encouraging them to go in so they can feel that empowerment
Wow.
and they know that they're the ones going in. So we're taking them back. We're taking them back in time. You're following this energy. Like, how far back does it go? Follow it back, follow it back, follow it back.
And
And then,
being a shaman, that's harder to do, to teach somebody to do it than just to do it yourself.
oh, yeah, much harder. But it's much more empowering. I always
Oh,
say
it is.
you're teaching someone to fish rather than fishing for them, which is
Exactly.
completely more empowering. Right? So they're going down, they're checking in, like, how far back does this go? How far back does it go? Okay, maybe oh, this is at 1 years old. I was abandoned, blah, blah, blah. But if it's a legacy burden, what will happen is they'll go down, and they'll go, wow, I don't know. I always had this. And then the next question is, well, did you come in with it? Did you come in with this energy? And they go, yeah. And then the next question is, does it belong to someone other than you?
Yeah.
This is the telltale sign. And they'll go, oh, whoa, yeah, yes, this isn't even mine. This is my mother's,
Wow.
right?
Wow.
And then
Yeah.
you say, okay, so how much of this energy belongs to your mother and how much of it belongs to you? And often, because it's a legacy burden, it might be 50-50 because the energy has come in and it's taught your little system how to react to abandonment, right? But you're not realizing that it actually, that other 50% belongs to your mother, right? So then you ask that question. So how much of this is yours and how much of it belongs to your mother? And they go, oh, I don't know, it's 50-50. Great.
Yeah,
So
because if we have that reference point in it and we've lived it, we're gonna create a reality from it,
right.
and it becomes
That's
ours.
That's right. That's right.
Now, I wanted to ask you a question because it's
Sure.
great stuff, because this is deep work
It's
that
really
you're like, getting people to come to. What are some of the tools that you teach people to get to that complex skill set that they need to have in order to do this work on their own?
well, they don't usually do it on their own.
But with you, but yet, still they're journeying in, and there's a degree of independence and amazing
Yeah.
skills
Yeah.
they have to learn. So what
So
what are they developing to
really
do?
good question because, people don't often come into therapy going right into legacy burdens because really, if you think about it, people aren't even going to be interested in that until later in their development. Right? Because they're still learning how to work with the stuff that happened to them in childhood, and sometimes that's so thick
Yes.
these people may be in therapy for a couple of years with you before they're ready to do a legacy burden, because
Wow.
they have so much childhood stuff that they're working through. But once they are able to do that work and they've been working with themselves deeply enough, they're so ready to do
Mm,
that next piece because it's the legacy stuff is often the stuff that it's like, God, I've worked with this over and over and over, and I can't seem to move it, right? I can't really get rid of this. It's like I've unburdened this till the cows come home and it's like still around. Well, that's because it's not yours, right? It doesn't even belong to you. Like this is someone else's.
yeah.
Right, and so it usually is people a little later in their development that start to see, okay, this is the next piece of work. It's kind of like, it's kind of
Great
like,
answer.
huh?
That's a great answer.
Yeah, I think it's just true.
Mhm.
You
Well, it comes out of 30 years of experience working with this stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and at this point, most of my clients are other therapists who have done a lot of work on themselves, so that's who comes to my workshops and stuff usually.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you were mentioning, an issue that, well, it does go back through cultures and such, even, the culture of our country. United States.
Oh my God. Well, if you just take a look at what's happening in the world right now, like that's what we're doing, right? We're working with racism, we're working with sexism, we're working with patriarchy. It's like all of that. Like I just ran a workshop last weekend and it was like all of those things were in the room, right?
Mhm.
We can't not address it anymore. It's like it's so prevalent. And so that becomes something to begin to work with. Like what is the culture of racism and how do we work with that inside ourselves? And what's the culture of patriarchy and how can we start to let that go?
Yeah.
I just went on this beautiful Mary Magdalene trip with Bart and, the
I'm the tour guide, by the way.
yeah, it was beautiful. But that culture, right? Like, what happened there, Like,
Yeah.
what
I
happened?
always I always find the difference between Europe and the United States often is we are exiles, and they have been in their country for, hundreds and hundreds of years,
Mhm.
and it makes a big difference.
Yes.
We have a exile legacy burden probably.
Yes, yes, but those of us in the United States were once hailed from Europe, a lot of us, right? And
Yeah.
what happened to our ancestors over there? What happened to our people? And we came over here and then we just brought all our crap over here, and started, colonizing and all kinds of things, right? Like all of that began somewhere else. Um, and so really to deal with uh, a lot of these issues, I think legacy burdens can be really deeply, deeply healing to be able to heal what's happening in our world now. I just feel like, especially for us white Anglo European people who look like we're fine, but we go back to Europe and we realize all the things that happened there. And how can we begin to heal that in our own systems so that we can move out of these structures like patriarchy and racism and sexism and
It sounds like an unending journey,
yes.
but the question is how deep you wanna go.
Yes. Yes. My students often say to me in IFS, they go, "Well, how long is this going to take? When am I ever going to be unburdened?" And I think, honestly, I say, well, you know, if there's all the stuff that happened to you in your childhood, and then there's all these ancestor burdens, and then there's past lives, right? Like there's all the past lives you have to clean up. I don't know. I think you're in for a long road. That's what I say.
But also, it's being a steward for the whole planet of people that are at this finely tuned way of consciousness, willing to go that deep, that thorough, not only for yourself, but wouldn't you say that this also works for not only your family, but society in general?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I have to tell you something. There's something else that as you do this work and you start to clean up your ancestor work, it's like I'm noticing, like I have a 32-year-old daughter, and I'm noticing that she's getting the benefit of my work. Like as I clean myself up, she doesn't have to carry that so much, right? So we carry it, for ourselves, but also for our world and for the generations that follow us. If we
Mm.
clean it up, it impacts them. They don't have to do so much work. So there it does seem like there's some people like really, on the path to like really healing themselves and other people might want to heal only so far that then they can maybe have a nice marriage or make their marriage work, have a nice job or so it just depends on how far you want to go with this and
Indeed, indeed. Well, service is one of the highest callings of spirituality, and those who wish to go this deep, they
yeah.
are probably getting to explore thousands of morphogenetic fields that are
Yes.
connecting with endless amounts of people.
Yes. 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 Yeah, this cultural burden thing, like, started to just come through me during COVID. It was like I was sitting with I'm English and Irish and French, right? So, I was sitting with the English and the Irish, and I was like, "Oh, this is in me." Like, I have this, like, elitist, intellectual English part, which I don't lead with. My family tends to, but I don't necessarily. And then this kind of Irish, French, like, easygoing, laissez-faire, and I started to notice that I would imagine that other people were judging me, but then I began to realize that that judgment was coming from inside of me. Like, my English part was, like, dominating my Irish part, and I was like, "Whoa, this is really powerful." Right?
So, yeah, because both of those cultures have such different
Yeah,
perspectives to this less we call it on this show, the less than interesting virus, by the way.
yeah.
We don't say the C word. Uh, it's like the English take charge, they're initiators, and
Mm,
they have a power that pushes out onto the world. Therefore, they have
yeah,
conquered all kinds of countries,
yes.
and colonized and did all of these things, whereas the Irish were
Work
more
out.
passive.
Yes, yes, so it's like and if that both of those live inside of you, like, ooh,
Yeah, it's a different type of strength, let's just say it that way. I love
yes,
the Irish culture and all the strength of what that is.
yes,
It's like if you're Irish, I think you're always eternally Irish.
yes, 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 yes,
Something about the spirit of that land, and it doesn't matter who conquered or owns land in Ireland, it always seems to go back to the Irish eventually, and somewhere the Irish know it.
yes,
And,
yes,
and that type of identity has its own morphogenic reality.
yes,
A lot of
yes,
the strengths in that.
yes, that's right, that's right. And so I wanna give a plug to, someone else who I have studied with recently. His name is Daniel Four, and he wrote a book called Ancestral Medicine, and, um, because this legacy burden thing was kind of my thing, like, really early, like, 25 years ago, it was like, all of a sudden, it's everywhere, right? And
It
I'm like,
is.
it's just everywhere. It's like all of a sudden, it's just there's books popping up all over the place, and I have little parts that are like, "Well, what the wait, this is my concept. Why are all these people?" And so someone sent me this book, and I thought, "I'm not reading this damn book from this guy. Like, what does he know? I don't." And
And so what's his name again?
Daniel Four. He's a lovely, lovely
Four?
Foor, and
Foor,
yeah,
okay.
he's a shamanic practitioner and a psychologist, and he lives in Spain now. He was in North Carolina. But I picked up his book and who what does he know? I don't know. And then I decided I was gonna listen to him, and I listened to him and I thought, he really knows some things that I don't know about. Like, I could learn some things from him. I, like, humbled myself and I was like, I'm gonna so I took his training, and he I learned so much, like, not about IFS because he doesn't know about that, or about what I call legacy burdens, but he has this concept of working with the well and whole ancestors and bringing them in to help the lineage. And
Yeah,
so I just started to do that with my own ancestors and found it to be really healing for me. And I've now integrated that into the work that I do. And I now and so I really want to thank him and honor him for that piece of, before what I was doing is just having people pass back their legacy burdens back and back and back. But now I'm helping to create a healing space through the well and healed ancestors. And it's even more beautiful.
and I think that's how the collective consciousness works, is that
Yes.
we're all gravitating to certain types of energies or certain types that comes out as knowledge and expression of words and
Yes.
that's morphogenetic field related.
Yes.
In fact, a guest on my show, Becoming Quantum Conscious at United Public Radio,
Mhm.
UFO Paranormal Radio Network on Roku, Facebook, and YouTube. Um, I will be having Perdita Finn on the show on September 13th, and she is talking about the magic of accessing your ancestors and
Oh,
how to use them
okay.
as tools to create whatever you want to create in life, but also to resolve things with them to create more internal power.
Nice, beautiful.
So it's popping up like
It's
crazy.
well, do you remember the book, The 100th Monkey, back in the day?
Okay.
You're old like me, so you probably remember it, right? So that idea that, as a concept comes through, it's like it was coming through me and it was coming through a couple of my colleagues, right? And it didn't feel like it was going very far. Like I would talk about it and people go, yeah, yeah. And I try to get IFS, like, I want to teach this and all that. No, nobody's interested in that. And so it's like it didn't go very far. I should have written the book back then, but it didn't go very far. And then all of a sudden, it's like that 100th monkey, right? It pops up, pops up, pops up,
It
pops, and then
does.
all of a sudden it's everywhere.
And it needs powerful women like yourself
Yeah.
that have this particular internal power. Some
Mhm,
people would call it chi, but
mhm,
it's just this essence that is so strong
mhm.
that is willing to be proactive for the world.
Yes,
And
yes, yeah,
what is so much needed is for us to recognize that power
mhm,
and clear whatever is in the way that
yes,
is distracting us from being that power and
mhm,
then move forward with whatever dreams we want to do.
yes, yes,
Really
yes,
simple.
yes, yes, and just to know that, after our trip to the south of France with Bart, with Mary Magdalene, that when I came home, I already had a Legacy Burden weekend scheduled, but in the last couple of weeks, I've scheduled about 5 more. So, it's like my intention is to bring this work into the world full blast. I'm, turning 68 in October, but as much chi as I have left, like, I just feel like and to work with it in groups, like I worked with it with a group of 30 people last
Wow.
year. It was so powerful, and people really being able to help one another and, you
So,
know
so if you were, for example, if you were working in a group with, say, somebody that had a father that was a criminal,
Mhm.
violent criminal,
Yes.
you would be clearing that perspective with everybody with the group that had similar stories or maybe stories that they didn't even know happened generations upon generations
Yeah.
back.
Yes, yes. Well, I work with people to set it up so that everyone is getting to clear their own ancestor lineage, whatever one they choose to work with or ones if they choose to work with. And then in the group we do like a I call it sculpting, but it's a psychodramatic kind of thing. And then we use like family constellations to bring the ancestors into the room. And now
Mm.
I've been working with this concept of really bringing cultural energies in too, right? Like bringing in racism and sexism and patriarchy. And so then everybody gets a chance to clear. It's just been very beautiful and powerful. And
We could even work on something like blind ambition. I was just thinking when you said racism, I thinking about okay, so the blacks were brought over from Africa, but that blind ambition that would do something
yes,
so cruel to another person,
yes,
that would be a really interesting one.
totally agreed, right? Colonization, all of that.
Yeah.
All of that energy you can work with.
Wow. She
Yeah.
has a new workshop coming out in October on blind ambition, folks.
That would be good.
Yeah,
That's
but to me, I mean, I guess Jung would had be calling this in some ways a shadow aspect of yourself, but it's so much more complex than what Jung knew.
yeah,
That it's intertwined throughout all of humanity.
yes. Well, I think Jung knew that from the collective unconscious, like, he was
Mm,
definitely onto the collective unconscious, but to even narrow that down a little more into you know, these strands of what is the collective unconscious? Well, maybe it's ancestors going way back, or maybe it's cultural burdens or right? Like I think all of that is part of the collective unconscious. You know?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And you mentioned I was watching one of your videos. She has videos out on YouTube, folks, explaining this so eloquently. Um, but you were talking about, well, we would not have legacy burdens if the family got together when something happened and processed it and gave that incident a place in their lives and a place for it to be let go and resolved,
Yeah,
maybe through a ritual or something.
yeah.
And I just I was writing down some ideas, the advantage of doing rituals, with a family situation when you do have a unfortunate event. Um, Everybody gets to process it, for one.
Mhm.
It creates an atmosphere of caring for each other.
Mhm.
It dissipates a feeling of isolation for issues,
Mhm.
and it creates a basis of equality with everybody in the family because everybody knows they have a part in it.
Yeah. Yes.
And the walls of our defensive systems in relation to ourselves and family begin to crumble.
Yeah, so I wanna take that back even further. Like one of the things that I've been really hanging out with these days is what is it that why don't we do that? Well, partially, I think we don't do that because you know, feelings and emotions aren't necessarily allowed. I mean, how many of you grew up in a family where all your feelings and emotions were allowed and allowed to be fully expressed inside you and with another? And so I'm starting to look back at like how long has that been going on culturally? Like if we go back, I just read this really beautiful book by Peter Kingsley called A Story Waiting to Pierce You, and according to him, it goes back thousands of years. Like when did we decide that feelings weren't okay and we had to go into the intellect or the body wasn't okay and we had to go into the mind, right? Like all of that started so long ago.
And maybe the part of just speaking up.
Yes. Yeah, well, first you have to have access to feelings, right? And know what your feelings are and know what your emotions, and then you have to be able to um act on them and then you have to speak for them. But you can't do that if your cultural burden is don't feel, don't have feelings, don't have emotions, and so many of us have that. Right? And we can clear that up in childhood, but it's like that thing goes back really, really far,
It
And
does.
again, on the retreat that I did with you in the south of France, like really feeling into Magdalene and Jesus and what they were sharing, and what they were teaching. It's like that's all gotten twisted around and turned around. And that happened thousands of years ago, hundreds, thousands of years ago. So sometimes we have to go. That's why Daniel Four's work was so helpful, like to go back to those ancestors way, way, way back in time who really were whole and healthy, and have them come in to help us to reclaim this
Yeah.
inside of ourselves as we let go of and unburden. It's not just one way, right? We have that help, but we also have to let go of what is no longer helpful.
Yeah, I wonder how many thousands of years we'd have to go back for that, though.
Very, very far.
Well,
Very,
whole,
very far. We have
group.
to go back very far
Yeah,
too, and
yeah.
it's okay, we can. We there that did exist once upon a time, where people were really whole and healthy, and I
Or
believe.
or to cultures that were whole and healthy.
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah, where there's a balance.
yes, and we can get some help from them because we need it. We
We
don't have
do
we don't have it, and
do
so
that.
yeah,
It's so important. And we just start to go into that journey, and it also sounds like a very important tool that the person who practices legacy burdens is to trust the messages that kind of show up intuitively in their body.
yes, yes, that's right, but
To
then you have to start to trust the body again. Right? And so some of that, like, that takes time, you know, for us to really trust our body and our felt sense and our knowing in our body. We've been so trained out of that. So learning how to go back in and be in the body and listen to it and all that takes time.
it is, and I think the world is ready for this.
Absolutely.
However, they need guidance,
Yes. Yes.
and that's a lot what internal family systems does is
Yeah.
teach people how to feel that interior world that has a infinite like intelligence.
Yeah, and how to begin to trust our higher selves, like, that's the other thing that we've been trained out of, like, right? Like, where our religions have taught us to trust the priest or the minister, or the not ourselves, right? I mean,
Yes,
that was the other beauty of that trip that I took with you, like, really, like, Magdalene and Jesus really teaching about God is within, right? And so to begin to really trust that, and then all that was taken away from us.
yes, and the memory of the land in Southwest
Yeah.
France, so strong with a very,
Mhm.
for lack of better words, a feminine power.
Yes.
Uh, but it's just a deep vibration of Mother Earth that's very special. I don't think there's many places in the world that have that frequency happening.
But that's what's been lost is that I mean, if you think about the goddess, like we don't honor in the West, we don't honor a goddess, right? Like that's part of the legacy burdens, right? Like not to honor the feminine. What the hell? How long's that been going on? Right? Right?
Yeah,
All
2,000 years at least since the Romans came in.
yes,
Came in
yes,
with a masculine
yes,
patriarchal model,
yes, yes.
and we find that feminine by going internal.
That's right. And trusting the body and listening, but we have to do work to be able to get there because we're so trained out of it.
Exactly. So, any parting thoughts? Because I know you're going to have to leave a few minutes early, and I'm going to close the show without you. So, uh, any closing thoughts?
Well, I just want to say thank you to you for having me on. This was really fun. And I'm like so thrilled that of how closely my work connects with the trip that we took together. It's like I don't even think I was so aware of it until this moment. So it's
It's
really
yeah, it's really funny how all of these paths have
mhm.
crossed.
Yeah.
I Kay assembled a group of her friends, most of them IFS counselors, and they hired me to do a 10-day tour for them.
And by the
And
way, it
so,
was beautiful. So if any of
uh,
feel
They
so.
had their intention, and they had, I guess, their club, so to speak, and I just, got to facilitate and be a troublemaker and help them feel safe and feed them good food.
You did
Uh,
a beautiful job. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much, and
thank
thank
you
you
so
so much
much.
for having
Thank
me
you so
on, and
much.
thank you for everything, Bart.
Many blessings to you, hon, and,
Thank you.
thank you so much for being on the show.
Okay, take good care. Bye.
We'll see you later. I'm gonna turn you off. All right, so that was Kay Gardner of Internal Family Systems with Legacy Burdens. Wow, it leaves me with a few minutes to reflect on some of this stuff, and that the divine feminine is not celebrated. And I wanted to bring this in with a reminder that Mary Magdalene's feast day is July 22nd. That is Saturday, folks. And it's interesting why the 22nd was chosen. Of course, the feast day is assigned by the Roman Catholic Church. And I believe this feast day was established in 1985. Of course, a feast day is only recognized by apostles, Mother Mary, and Mary Magdalene. Of course, Jesus, I guess, with Christmas. So it's a big recognition on her part of what those of us who love Mary Magdalene and the Divine Feminine already know about how her history is a lot unknown and yet very special and very powerful about what she represents. And one of the things she represents is July 22nd was a was a commemorative day or a feast day, so to speak, by Europeans for thousands of years, not thousands, but hundreds of years, excuse me, over 1,000 years old. We don't know how long they have been recognizing that day as Mary Magdalene's Day. And why is it that day? It's a little tidbit of information. Uh, January 17th is the beginning of the Egyptian calendar. And this is a masculine beginning. And then at midpoint, July 22nd is Mary Magdalene's feast day. So you have, the two ends of the year commemorated together. And my favorite place to be, of course, on this day would be Rennes Chateau in France. And unfortunately, I'm not there, but it is one of the most powerful places in that area, mainly because it's a beacon point of energies, of ley lines from all over the world. My favorite one is a triangulated ley line between um, Mount Sinai and Egypt, the Bomberg Islands in Denmark, and Rennes Chateau. Sinai is a very powerful mountain. It powers up the energy with a high cosmic vibration. Bomberg grounds it. And Rennes Chateau is a beacon energy. In other words, it shines the energies out from these two other power spots throughout the cosmos, throughout dimensions, throughout realities, and yes, in the church itself at Rennes Chateau. So it should be a really highly energetic day there today, I hope. And so we give salutations to Mary Magdalene to end the show, one of my favorite models of Divine Feminine. And just know that Divine Feminine is within you, whether you are a male or female. It is not about gender, it's about self knowing, self empowerment, and knowing your innate power that begins as a child. That's where the feminine comes from. Or at least that's my point of view that I'm writing about in my new book, Body Conscious. So this is Bart Sharp from United Public Radio Network. and UFO Paranormal Radio Network on 107.7, 105.3 on Roku, YouTube, and Facebook and other platforms. Wishing y'all a great day and wishing you all the best. And we'll see you next week with the Hag, which is the crone expression or the crone consciousness of an Irish researcher named Eilidh Azik. And so we're going to be going into St. Bridget and other forms of the wizened feminine. We'll see you next week and wish you all the best. Bye for now.